So the question is, what is the devil? It's obvious that there's things that happen in life that we don't necessarily wish happened. In fact, we wish a lot of things hadn't happened at all. On the other hand, there's wonderful things that happen that we wouldn't replace them for anything. And so what's going on? Is there some sort of a struggle between goodness and badness out there that we happen to be connecting into, and we're feeling the repercussions of it? Exactly what is it that's happening in the universe that we can make sense of it, so that we can, predict what our lives are going to be, and how we can, manifest or create the life of our dreams without having a monkey on our back, so to speak. A devil that keeps sabotaging, sticking a stick in the wheel, and jamming up the works. What is it? What is it that's going on? How do we make sense of it so that we can have a predictable life, and we don't have to worry about a devil, okay? Or evil, or negativity and things like that. Well, let me go ahead and just jump right in and explain the best I can understand the way things are. And then you can hopefully, derive some benefit from it as an individual, okay? So imagine, the best way to put it in perspective, I think, is to recognize, first of all, the relativity of everything. For instance, good versus bad, okay? Today, let's say today a particular thing is good. Say ice cream. Ice cream is good today, okay? So you start eating ice cream every day, and before you know it, you weigh 300 pounds and you're out of shape because all you do is eat this ice cream every day, and it's more calories than you need, and so eventually you're a big fat slob, okay? Now, was there something wrong with the ice cream? No, there wasn't anything wrong with the ice cream. The ice cream did exactly what it was supposed to do. It tasted good. You enjoyed eating it. It was fun. But was it good? Well, the first cup was good, and maybe a cup every week, maybe every Sunday, a little treat, a cup of ice cream, that's good. Or maybe if you work real hard, you put a lot of energy out there in some physical job, then maybe a cup of ice cream a day every day would be fine because you use up those calories. But the fact of the matter is, if you eat ice cream every day, you don't use the calories, you're gonna get a repercussion from it, a negative effect. So was there something wrong with the ice cream? No, the ice cream did exactly what it was supposed to do. What was the wrong? It was using things inappropriately at the wrong time, a misplaced calculation. So we're talking about ignorance. So we can see a direct connection between ignorance, it might even be willful ignorance, and negative outcomes. And that's the intent, or that's the clarity that we need to help people to understand, or come to understand as an individual, what negativity or the devil or evil really is. For the vast majority of the cases, it's an outcome that was predictable from the causes that went into it. In other words, the evil is the result of something that went on in our heads. The physical evil is something that went on in our heads. For instance, the something that went on in our heads is I can't stop, I refuse to not eat ice cream every day. And the result was, pounds of fat, okay, or unnecessary weight on our body, which is a negative repercussion of eating too much ice cream. I think I belabored the point about how, the connection between what we say, what we do, and the results. And so, in reality, if we could look at any aspect of lies, I think the proper word is called dichotomy, the dualities of things, such as good and bad, light and darkness, wisdom and ignorance, up and down, left and right, goes on and on and on. And you could look at anything, like for instance, patience. Let's use the word patience, okay? So in some instances, patience is appropriately a perfect and appropriate thing. But in other instances, patience would be inappropriate. So is there something wrong with patience? No. The best way to look at it is put patience on a scale from 1 to 10. In one particular situation, expressing patience of a 10 is appropriate. Whereas on another occasion, expressing a patience of a 10 is completely inappropriate. And a patience of a 1 would be better. Okay? And so the point I'm getting at is it's called an axiological scale, or a scale of degrees. Okay? And depending on a particular situation, some level of degree of a particular aspect of reality, such as patience or love or even hate, would be appropriate. If someone is trying to attack your family, then you should appropriately express some level of hate to stop the attack. Now, exactly how that hate should be expressed, it should be expressed in some controlled way and in a measured way. So what I'm getting at is every situation is relative. And so if every situation is relative, the evil or the good in that situation is relative also. And so it's not that there's a warring going on between a mind of good and a mind of bad. Well, what is it then? Well, let's look a little deeper. Let's unpack this a little more. Okay. So now that we've come to understand the relativity of everything, let's look at one particular aspect of relativity, and hopefully it'll help us to clue in as to exactly what's happening. There's light and there's darkness. Well, what's the difference between light and darkness? Well, light is something that that our eyes are able to pick up, okay, and it makes it possible for us to recognize things around us and orient ourselves with the space that's around us. Okay, well, what is darkness? Well, darkness is the lack of light, the inability to see with our eyes, visually, and that darkness, it's the lack of something. Let's go back to the axiological scale. Perfectly bright light is a 10, and perfect zero darkness is a 0 or a 1. Okay? So between those two, you go from complete darkness to bright light. Okay? It's a variation between the two. So what's happening? Okay? So is the light changing into darkness? No, that's not what's happening. The light is simply no longer present. Okay, so that's not what's happening. Is the darkness taking over the light? No, that's not what's happening. What happens is as the light dissipates or diminishes, darkness is what is the remaining. So in reality then, darkness is the lack of light or the lacker measure of light compared to before, whereas light is the substance. So what we can see then is that darkness is the lack of light. So just to put it in perspective, there's a room, there's no light on it. You go into the room, you walk up to the room, you flip on the light switch, and so you flip the light switch on and all the darkness runs away. No, the darkness didn't go anywhere. It no longer, the darkness was basically saturated with light. So we can see then the axiological scale in it. So light and darkness was basically a substance that varied from being able to be visually inspected to where there was nothing there. Okay, so light. So basically on a scale from 1 to 10, well, let's just use the word water. So something a little bit more substantial in our minds. Okay, so basically we have a container, okay, and in this container there's a certain volume that could be filled, okay, and so basically we could put it could be completely empty, which would be considered completely darkness, and then we could add a little water to it, or light substance to it, and then a little light would go into the darkness. So the darkness would be it would be light. It would be able to be some visual field. And then as you added more water to it and filled up the container, then by the time it would be completely full, the water would create a bright light, okay? So as we fill it up, so let's just assume, something not quite substantial light, light is like air, it's very dynamic. And so it completely saturates and fills a room. And of course, that's what water does. When you pour water in a container, it completely saturates or fills up the space up to the elevation, that it reaches. And so, hopefully, I'm helping you to appreciate the clarity of having something versus not having something, okay? So, let's switch now from light and darkness to wisdom or intelligence and ignorance, okay? So basically you're in a situation where you're completely intelligent. Everything you do is right on time, right on cue, exactly as it should be. Things are, fall together to where things work out and, the highest path possible, okay? And then on the other hand, there's ignorance to where you're walking around in complete chaos, complete ignorance, no benefit whatsoever for yourself or others, okay? That's the two extremes, okay? So intelligence is, if you think about it, intelligence is sort of like light or, in that it's, you can't put your finger on it, it's an organized state versus ignorance, a completely disorganized state, okay? So we can see that effort and organization went into wisdom and understanding, whereas ignorance is the lack of organization. I used the word chaos a while ago, and really that's the proper perspective, from chaos to cosmos. The mind of God is the cosmos, versus the mind of ignorance, or the lack of God's presence, or the lack of, again, so using the axiological scale again, intelligence 10, ignorance 1, okay? Depending on how organized our thinking is, then the lack of chaos will be in our lives and we will have organization. And so was the chaos out to get us? Was disorganization and ignorance out to get us? No, it was just the natural process of making dumb decisions because we did not see the forest for the trees. We didn't see the best path to take. So we just took some ignorant path. And that's where we come in as individuals, okay? Which one do we want to be? Do we want to be the 0 ignorant on the scale, or do we want to be the 10 top intelligent in the know on the scale? Well, most people say they would want to be on the intelligent side of it, okay? So where's the devil in this is the question. Intelligence was through organization and thinking and so forth and so on. Ignorance came from basically doing nothing. There's no devil in it. The devil is the refusal to put effort in and make something beneficial, from what you were. I mean, with that illustration in mind, let's just go to being a baby. A child is born ignorant as can be, with all the potential to grow and learn and become, whatever it wants to be. It's got free will. And so as it comes into this world and its environment and so forth and so on, it can become whatever it wants to be. Now, it could just sit on a couch and eat ice cream all the time and have a completely unproductive life. Or it could, go to school and learn and grow and take advantage of opportunities and become, change its chaos into a cosmos. Now, where's the devil in this? The devil is in the person's desire to do, what they want to become, their own personal free will. So basically, the devil is on one shoulder, we've got an angel that's saying, yes, let's become the best we can be. And on the other side, we've got a demon, if you want to call it, or that's basically saying, or a devil, if on the other shoulder, that's basically saying, I don't want to do anything. I just want to sit around and do nothing. Well, is that an actual conscious effort by some creature doing that? No, that's just a decision. It's a choice. So basically what we're coming down to is we all have a choice in life, whether we want to take the highest path or no path at all, or some low, unhealthy path. Now, at first, we might not realize it's an unhealthy path, but once we realize it is, then what are we going to do? Are we going to stay on it? Once we realize we're in a dark room, we're just going to sit in there in the dark, or are we going to turn a light on? And that's what we're talking about. So the devil, what is it? It's our own ability to make sound, healthy decisions versus not. And when we don't, we got the devil in our life. We've got something less than the best. We've got some negative influence from evil that's going to lead to outcomes that we don't like. But again, it all comes down to an axiological scale of what do we want in life. Do we want success, or do we want to do nothing? That's the scale. We have a choice. One is, if you want to say one is God and the other is the devil, that's up to you. But the only one that has any power is you deciding what you want. And if you decide you want the devil in your life, you're going to have the devil in your life. You're going to have nothing but chaos and disappointment or some mixture thereof. Because really this is about consistency. If we're consistently, if we consistently make our school classes, we go to school consistently and we do our best to learn and so forth and so on. When we graduate school, we're going to be in the know, and we're going to be able to go out there and start making sense of the world and become a very productive person and successful. On the other hand, if we go to school and we don't take time to learn, we don't do the work, we don't grow, we don't develop ourselves, then what do we get? We get out of college, we get out of high school or whatever, and we flounder. We don't get anywhere. Well, is there a devil stopping us? Yeah, the devil was stopping us every day we went to school. We didn't do our best. And that devil is the person you see when you look in the mirror. Now, don't get me wrong. There's more to it than that, because there's influences in people's lives. For instance, the parents the family we were born into, and the parents we have. The devil in our life is going to be relative to how intelligent our parents are, and how well educated we are as children, so that we can grow up with a good start or not. But the level of ignorance that we have to contend with in our life is a consistent thing that we have to overcome as an individual. And to blame it on some outsource is unproductive. Because even if we were raised in a family with a couple of incompetent parents, and here we find ourselves as a young adult now, if we at least took the effort to learn to read and write and to get the best we can out of our education, then we're in a position where we can expand that, and we can get more goodness in our life, more God in our life, more love in our lives, or whatever quality we want. If we should choose to want to be a criminal, then that's fine. We can use the wisdom we have in an unintelligent way, in an ignorant way, and we can cause, bad outcomes for our life. But is there a devil outside there, conniving for us so that we can be a successful criminal? No. We're a good criminal because that's what we are. That's the person that we've become, we've chosen. On that scale of honesty versus lack of honesty, we decided not to put the effort into having honesty in our life. We've decided to have something less. And we have to deal with the consequences. We reap what we sow. A good perfect illustration is planting a garden. You plant a garden, and whatever you plant, that's what you're going to get. First of all, if you use soil, if you just have some soil from anywhere and you don't clean it out or sanitize it in some way, the soil itself is going to have a bunch of seeds in it, and no telling what you're going to get. In other words, that's our past. Our past has got all kinds of seeds in it, and if we try to water it and make something good of it, without even planting any fresh seeds of any kind, we're going to get something, but it's not going to be something worth eating. And it may be, in the end, we may say it was a waste of time to grow a garden because nothing grew that was useful. Well, again, wisdom. You put the effort in to grow a good garden, you'll get a good garden. Sanitize the seeds. Why don't you? What I've seen done is you actually put the dirt in a barrel, and you warm it up, to sterilize any seeds that's in the soil and anything that's unhealthy, so that you can use that soil to make a little garden, and the plants can start out in a nice healthy environment without any pathogens to discourage it and to keep them from growing well. And of course, the seeds you pick, if you want to grow cucumbers, then you buy whatever variety of cucumbers you want, and you're going to get them. Okay. Now, if you don't plant seeds, you're not going to get anything. In other words, the devil isn't, the devil is the lack of seeds, Now, if you want anything, you plant. Now, once you plant it, and whether it grows or not, it's how much effort you put into it. So the devil is the lack of the effort, or no devil is putting proper effort. Proper fertilizer, water every day. Good thoughts toward them. And so that the plants grow and eventually you bear fruit from it. But again, what is the devil? The devil is our choice as to how high of a path we're going to take in life or in any situation versus, the lack of that higher path. A good illustration that I like to use and I think really makes the point clear is this. Imagine God created Adam and Eve. Whether you believe an Adam and Eve person as an actual physical couple is irrelevant. Let's just assume this is an illustration, okay? So we don't get confused and lost in past religious beliefs. Assume there's a couple, Adam and Eve, and that was like the first couple that God created with all the potential to be the best they can be in life, okay? The issue, though, is that they're ignorant because there's nobody that's ever lived before, and they have no experience, nothing whatsoever. All they've got is a flower bed to grow some plants in, okay? And then at some future point in the future then, God has in mind that what he wants that garden to look like and what he wants his creation of mankind and the humankind, the physical reality that we know about. There's some point in the future that he wants it to be, okay? The ideal, okay? And between those 2 points in the future, we exist as well as everyone else, and we can decide whatever path we want to take between the two. Now, we definitely started with Adam and Eve, and we're definitely going to end with God's path, with God's purpose for us in the future, where we're going to be something in the future, whatever that is. Whether that future is in 2 years or 10 years or 20 years, who knows? But we're heading there, okay? And between those 2 points, there's an ideal path for us to take as an individual, to where we take the highest path possible every day of our life. Of course, we're not dealing with just ourselves. We're dealing with ourselves and the world around us and the people we know and so forth and so on and all our and the person that we are right now we're dealing with, because we gotta take us from where we are now to the next step. And ideally we're constantly staying on that most ideal path between Adam and Eve and God's in paradise in the future, God's purpose for mankind in the future. Okay, between those 2 things, we can do whatever we want. And depending on how well we follow the highest path versus not following that path, getting distracted and so forth and doing whatever, and just, living life that we decide we want to live, will determine how much devil we have in our life. If we follow stay close to the ideal path, which means making the best decision and other people helping us to make the best decisions possible in life and always sticking with those decisions, then we're going to have hardly no devil in our life at all, if any. Well, everywhere we go, it'll be bright sunshine, for all practical purposes. Even when we're in a dark room, whenever we're sleeping at night in the dark, it'll be bright sunshine for us because we're on the highest path. Whereas if we deviate from that and take ignorant choices and on purpose or for whatever the reason, let ourselves be deflected. And it could be that we wound up in a family of ignorant parents, and they give us absolutely no start in life. And so the devil is, or the deviation from our highest path, I should say, is was handed to us on a plate. And so we have to correct for that. So yeah, we've got a lot of devil in our life, a lot of deviation in our life, a lot of misplaced loyalties and whatever's in our life. But the only thing that can fix that is not some spirit deciding to stop picking on us, but us as an individual doing what we can as an individual to step ourselves and push ourselves in the correct direction. And by doing that, we're going to be taking any negativity or devil out of our life, and we're going to be putting goodness in and God, or whatever you want to call the highest path. In other words, if we put going up the mountain, the illustration of going up the mountain to God at the top, okay? Well, we're on the side of the mountain and we have a choice. We can walk up the mountain or make steps and so forth that'll give us a path moving up toward God, or we can decide to take a path downward. It's us. Downward is the devil from the viewpoint. Downward is the lack of energy, the lack of power, the lack of wisdom, the lack of light, the lack of, versus, to having substance and having whatever. And that's basically what we're looking at. Free will is us being able to decide the best or the something else. And depending on how we pick something else would depend how much negativity, deviation, things in our lives that we're not happy with. Because in reality, there's some things that we want to have in our lives. For instance, a man that wants to take on a wife, is that a positive thing? Well, if it's somebody that he dearly cares about and he wants to spend the rest of his life with her, that's a good thing. But if he don't want to have nothing to do with her and he's married to her, well, that's a bad thing. Okay? Well, which one's the devil? Well, neither one. You made a bad choice when you picked a woman that you really don't want to be with, and yet you're with her now. Okay? Well, whose fault is that? Well, whatever led up to that bad choice, figure it out so you don't do it again. Or and then from there, having children. Having children is sort of a deviation from the best path because there's a lot of responsibility in it. But is it worth it? Yeah, it's worth it. So yeah, there's some devil in it, but it's worth it. We can handle it. When we're mature and we're grown and we have the wherewithal, the mental and spiritual wherewithal about ourselves, we can handle some devil in our lives because it takes us handling devil in our lives to help others and to have a life, I'm not saying the best path between Adam and Eve and the paradise in the future is living as a monk, but it's living a life, and depending on what we do with that life will depend how much goodness and how much badness is in it. But that mix of goodness and badness as in our life as an individual is relative, and every badness that's in our life will be something that'll help us to see what the goodness is. In other words, when we go into a dark room, well, we know we're in a room. There's something there. We turn on the light. Now we get the benefit of the room. So the room is there, but can we benefit from it? Our life is there. How much light do we want? Do we want to have a room that's nothing but bright light that you can't hardly even open your eyes? Or do you want to have a room that's got enough light in it to where you can have a family and you can have, all sorts of things going on in your life? That's wonderful. Yeah, it could be bad, but we know how to balance it. We know how to keep things in the limits that they need to be, to where we can have children and be able to feed them. Not have children and not be able to feed them because we had children, but we didn't get an education to make a living. Who's the one who's at fault for not putting, their ducks in a row, so to speak, and taking one thing at a time? Again, the person we look at in the mirror. Well, I think I'm starting to beat a horse now, a dead horse, and I don't want to do that. But hopefully I've made clear to everyone, some food for thought to help them to appreciate, how we have control over our lives, and we have to make the decisions that we think best. And some of those decisions, after we make them and they come into existence around us, we maybe say, hey, I don't want to make that decision anymore. And that's the point, is don't blame it on somebody else and just keep doing it, but recognize that, it was a poor choice. It was a devil of a choice, an ignorant choice, an evil choice. And I don't want to make those kind of choices anymore. And as we grow and mature as a person, we will be able to, and with healthy support of healthy spiritual people around us, if that's the environment we put ourselves in, then collectively we'll be able to have a successful, good life. And the thought of a devil will be foolishness, because we'll just know what reality is. Reality is spirit. Spirit is an energy that does all sorts of things, even stupid things for us if that's what we want. And so we have to, learn to use our minds and our wills and our existence in a creative, positive way. And if we do that, then the issue of having a devil in our life is really mute. Peace profound.